Oh, good morning. Hey, everybody. Good morning. What a morning it is. What a day to be alive, as they would say. Isn't it? It's the 14th. No, it's the 13th. Oh, can't be bothered. Oh, Jesus. Ooh, child. Ooh, child, as my daughter would say. Ooh, child. Good morning, everybody. I thought I was live on Facebook. Good morning. How are you all doing? Good morning. Good morning, Facebook. How are you? Great to be here this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. My YouTube is a little blurry. I look like I'm coming from out of space, but we're doing well. Good morning, Periscope and Twitter audience. I'm so grateful that you took the time out to join me today. And I'm so very grateful that we have a few which we can talk about all that matters. So thank you so much for joining. It is a pleasure and a privilege to do this. I say every day that I feel completely blessed to be able to share my stories with you and to be able to come to you on a daily basis and talk to you. I feel completely blessed. Thank you. This is what I do. This is how we do what we do. And I'm so very grateful that you have taken time. But good morning. My Periscope audience are thrilling me over here. Good morning, sir. How are you, Mr. Ruglu14? Thank you. Just want to say good morning to everyone. Let's see who has joined me here. Jacqueline. Hi, Jacqueline. How are you? And thank you to my friend there. Your name is written in Arabic, so pardon me if I don't read Arabic. Okay. But thank you so much, everybody. We are on fire this morning because, like every parent in the United States, yesterday we were all shocked at this college cheating scandal. And it's shocking because for most of us who have children who have matriculated to college or who are matriculating to college, college admissions is a big deal, right? And we have worked assiduously. Peter Concrete, say hey to your sisters. It's been a few years since we last saw them, hasn't it? Say hello to your sisters. Kathy Concrete and I remember clearly. I think Kathy and I don't know if we were the same year or something, but we had some good times together. She was a very sweet girl. I hope she's still alive. And your younger sister, I can't remember her name, but I remember her face. It's amazing how you don't forget the faces of the people you grew up with. Have you guys noticed that 20 years passes, 10, 20 years, 30 years passes, and the people whom you grew up with, the people whom you commiserated with in elementary school, middle school, and high school, for some reason, you don't forget their faces. You see them and immediately recognition clicks. 20 years has brought stuff on us because I am quite sure I do not look the same. I am pretty sure of that. And it's amazing how you see faces on social media and you realize that these are the folks you went to school with. So it's so nice to see Jillian. That's right. Jillian is the name of your younger sister. Say hello to them for me. We had some good times in school and I remember them well. But say hello to them. I trust all is well with you and family. Thank you so much, everybody. It's always good to see everybody. And I want to give a shout out to my friends in Louisiana who join me every day here on Periscope. I want to say hello to you. And I want to say thank you for being a part of my show. Thank you so much for your support. I finally got a chance to go through my Periscope feed this morning. And I'm amazed. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I mean, Periscope and social media are wonderful ways to connect with people from all over the world. And now I believe they're going to introduce new virtual reality things, techniques to Facebook, which means that if you're on Facebook because you're trying to protect your privacy, that's out the door. I think we can all agree on that, right? That we're not on social media because we're concerned about privacy. Because once you go on social media, there is no such thing as privacy, right? There are people, the people who have access to your devices, who run these platforms, have access to your devices. So they have access to your search histories on your phones and on your devices, and they have access to your photographs. They have access to your contacts. They have access to your pictures. If you have pictures, your passwords, there's nothing private today. So we might as well, we live in a day and time when privacy has gone out the window. So we might as well just go back in our houses and go back in our homes and put shutters on our windows and on our doors. If privacy is what you're looking for, if privacy is important to you, right? Just go shutter yourself in and stay away from that, because there is no such thing as privacy in today's world. Privacy went out the door, went out the window, and it's never coming back. I look for grants frequently, and I was telling a friend of mine yesterday that about 2 or 3 years ago, I was on a website looking for grants, and one of the grants that I saw being offered was the government offers grants to people to improve global positioning satellites, location settings. Right. So when we're going, when you're going somewhere and you put the address in your maps on your phone so that it can navigate you, the government was actually giving money out to folks all around the world. It was not confined to folks in the US who could provide updated technology on how to improve the GPS that is globally used. The GPS that is globally used is owned by the United States military. It's not owned by foreign governments. It's not owned by anybody. And this is why, as a nation, we're trying so hard to protect the integrity of our technology, because that's what keeps us elite. You certainly don't want it to be in the hands of someone you don't trust, right? So we want to make sure that if anybody has access to our technology, that's us, and that's what makes us elite. So our national security is a threat. When they say it's a threat, it's not an implied threat. It's a threat because there are other people with nefarious intentions who, if they have access to what we have, naturally, they're going to use it against us. And I don't think any of us who live here want anybody anywhere to use anything against us. I don't think so. I don't think that's going to go down well. So I think we're all on the same page when we recognize that if that is what the government wants to do, I think we're all going to say, yeah, by all means, do it. Stay ahead of the game, stay in the game, make sure we're ahead of the game, and make sure that, yeah, we're going to cooperate with you as much as possible in ensuring that we keep the integrity and keep us as safe, but also keep us in the lead. I don't want somebody like some dictator from Venezuela or someplace to start, or from Russia. Yeah, from Russia. I said that on Facebook. I don't want a dictator from Russia to start dictating to us who live here in the United States. I don't know about you, but I don't want totalitarian regimes here. I like it here. I like the fact that we get to choose our representatives, our congressmen, senators every day, every 4 years or every 2 years, right? And we get to choose our president, who is our king, because that's who the president is. They're the king for 4 years, and then we re-elect them. I like that system. I like to think that the elections are fair as much as possible. In today's world of technology, who knows what happens? But I still want to keep the veneer of it intact. Do you see what I mean? So, of course, I prefer this system because I trust it, because by and large, except for a few skanky individuals or for a few dishonest, creepy persons, the system basically works. It's much more efficient and organized than a lot of other governmental systems in the world. I shouldn't say more efficient and organized. I should say it is, right? The other systems that work equally well are perhaps in the United Kingdom and certain parts of Europe, certain parts of the Caribbean, and so on. So those work because they don't have issues. They don't have coup d'etats. They don't have, people being overthrown, massive power outages where whole country is out of power for weeks. Nah, so I like it here. So if privacy is what you aim for, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen on Facebook. It's not going to happen on Twitter or on Periscope, because the whole point was they sold us this idea that we could share information. And of course, for those of us who have family members and friends who are way outside of the country, of course you wanted to do that, right? You wanted to see that. You wanted to to be able to upload your pictures so your parents and family members in other parts of the country or in other parts of the world can view and see them just as you can in real time. And then when FaceTime became a thing, or Facebook messaging and Facebook calling, so now it will be more enhanced, where when you're calling someone through Facebook, it will be like FaceTime. They can see you, right? So of course that's always a thing, but privacy, what is privacy? There's the World Wide Web that turned 30 yesterday, and I kid you not, they find stuff. So people can track you, people from all over the place, they can know where you are. So privacy is out the window. I don't even know that some of the devices we have in our homes that we think contribute to making life better, right? More efficient, such as your alarm system, right? Many of us have alarm systems in our homes and it's monitored, right? Okay, and we have cameras in our homes. And we think it is safe because when we're away from home, it means we can catch a burglar or a burglary in progress. But what about when you are at home and you're walking around naked? Because we all do that. Or you get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, or you get up in the middle of the night. I don't know that I want people to have that kind of access. Do you see what I mean? Right? And then what about those other devices, such as our coffee makers, right? We program them so that when we get up in the mornings, it starts making coffee. Those are other devices that give people access to our homes, right? Or Wi-Fi, for instance. Some of you put your name on your Wi-Fi. So somebody driving down the street, all they have to do is to hold out their phone and a series of Wi-Fi options pop up, and there is your name, Kamak06. And they're like, whoa, so this is her Wi-Fi. Let me tap into it to see what they're watching, or to let me send a message, or make them run out of their house right now and think everything is going crazy. Use generic names for your Wi-Fi. Don't just say the name or your name, or most people say something like home. Like, seriously? If I'm parked outside your home and that Wi-Fi strength is the strongest and it says home, that's your Wi-Fi. Right? So don't give them, I mean, if they're coming after you, they're going to come after you because they have done that to all of us. We've all experienced some hacking at some point, right? I've been hacked. I have been, my email has been compromised, right? They've tried to get into my Facebook. I got a message the other day that somebody was trying to duplicate pages of me on Facebook. I don't even have time for that stuff. I'm like, okay, go ahead. Right? So in other words, what I'm saying is privacy is already compromised. So they have access to your photos. That's why you have to be really careful talking about which. I need to talk to me, Harriet, right? Be really careful about which photos there are in your photo stream, because you not only could you click on the wrong one, like most of us are prone to do, but the people who use these social media platforms not with the intent of what it was created for, to create a social interaction that is good for the community, but to create some kind of interaction that they can have access to your photos and use it to compromise you. Like they can have access, they find some picture of you that puts you in a compromising position, and they think they can blackmail you and get money out of you. And I'm like, have at it. I'm one of those persons who will just be like, okay, have at it. Right? But what if it's something that could seriously compromise your health or could compromise your security? So that's out the window. We have to accept, if you want peace of mind today, I think we have to accept that there is no such thing, no such thing as privacy. There's no such thing as security. There's no such thing. If they want you, they can find you. Even when you have a ton of people around you, they will always find someone who can get to you. So you might as well, as a human being, just accept certain things and say, okay, even for the very wealthy and the privileged. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about wealth and privilege and this college cheating scandal that has just simply garnered our attention, that just seems like it's gotten out of hand. And I don't know about you, but this is some pretty deep stuff. What do you all think about it? I mean, for most of us. I saw this, to be honest with you, the story first appeared while I was on the show yesterday. And when it, frankly, when it appeared as a notification. And it's not that I didn't believe it, I didn't want to believe it. Because the minute I saw the headline and I saw the photos of the two actresses, I knew that this was going to blow out of proportion. This was going to blow up and this was going to be something. And so I didn't want to believe it. But my oldest daughter is in law school. She's about to graduate. And she sent the story to me and she says, "You've got to read this story." And I said, "No." And I finally, when my show was over, I read the story in its entirety. And I, like everybody else, is outraged. I am just as outraged as you are, and we rightly should. And I want every one of us, the schools that are impacted, all the schools they've named: Texas, University of Texas at Austin, University of Southern California, Yale and Princeton, right? So far, those are the schools they have named. I want us all to stop sending our kids to those schools, because now I am convinced that the college admissions process is rigged. I didn't want to believe it, but now I do. There is no reason why students who have earned their way into college by working hard, studying hard. Some of you have taken your kids to play sports and you have paid the sacrifice of getting up early in the morning, the sacrifice of doing this from they were in middle school and taking your kids to extracurriculars. Some of us have paid for tutors to enhance their math skills and science skills. And then you're going to tell me some person just wrote a check. One of these actresses wrote a check for $500,000. I'm like, girl, if you're writing a check for $500,000 to get your kid into a school, you might as well just pay the school fee. Hey, somebody. Or check this out. How about this? So your child is challenged mentally. How about doing what the rest of us do? Shut their social media down and put them in front of their books. My God, this is so unfair. It is unbelievable. America, are you listening to me? We should not sit back and let this fly. We should hold those schools accountable and insist that those parents pay the time. They should not get away because they can go hire a lawyer who can delay jail time or reduce sentencing. Hell to the no. No. Oh, no. No, no, no. Let me tell you why. My daughters have to bust their ass to get into school. Yes, I said it. They have to bust their ass. It is not easy for them to get into colleges. And they're smart people. So they're not getting in because they're not smart. They're not getting in because I'm not writing a check for $15,000 to some college proctor and to some coach to pay them off to rig test scores. And when they weren't busy paying off people to rig test scores and rigging exam proctors, you know who is the exam proctor? The person who is in the room administering the exam. My daughter had to do a test for law school recently, and it's not cheap. She has to pay for it. So she pays for that. And to do the test, the proctors were in the room. Those are the people these folks are paying off to rig exam scores. Are you telling me that we're all just going to sit by and say, oh, they're wealthy and privileged and let them get away with it? No. In America, we say no one is above the law. No one is above the law. And get this, those students can't say they didn't know, because you know you didn't play the sport. You also know your GPA did not match up. So if your parents got you into school, you know they paid something. They wrote a check somewhere. They donated something somewhere. So those kids, over the last 10 years of this crisis, it's now 800 people on that list. 800 names are on that list. What they should do is every one of those kids over the last 10 years who got a degree based on these rigged test scores, those degrees should be rescinded. And that means if they're working at a job and the qualification for the job was to have this degree from this school, then that degree should be rigged and they should not have that job. That's how deep the repercussions should be, because it is an embarrassment. Do you see what I'm saying? So these schools now, hold on. The schools are not elite anymore. No, they're not. Why are they not elite anymore? Yale and Princeton. This is why I'm saying you're not elite anymore. And I'm going to call you all out on Twitter in a bit, right? You know why you're not elite anymore? Because you allowed students to come in who did not earn the merit to be there. So to heck with you, you are no longer valuable as an educational institution. Because number one, you're racist. Number one, you're classist anyway. And number two, you give this pretension, this pretentious habit that you have of being an elite school. Well, you're not elite. If I could have written a check for $500,000, then my child would be there. So you're not elite. You're just as rigged. You are just as nefarious, and you're just as bad as everybody else who has ever done anything bad. You're a rapacious capitalist, and that's what education in this country has come down to. Education in this country has come down to being just another form of rapacious capitalism. So all of you out there who have your bachelor's degrees, right, and you're at work, this is how deep this thing is, right? You're at work, and they tell you that in order for you to get ahead, you've got to go get a master's degree. If you get a master's degree, they're going to promote you into this position. So you go get your master's degree. It costs you another $125,000, $200,000, depending on where you go to school, right? So you get that, you add that to your student loan. Then you get in the position, and where before you were earning $70,000 a year, now you're still just earning $100,000 a year. What can that do to pay off this massive debt you have acquired? Because they told you that you had to have an advanced degree to be able to get this position, and that when you get it, you would earn this much. So it would offset the cost of the education. Then you found out that that's not true, that people were still getting promoted because they went to an elite school, because their parents are wealthy and elite. So I just want to say to all these folks, because I know that there are people who do it. They may not be elite, but they're wealthy. They live around us in our community every day. Yes, they do. They pay off the coaches. Yes, they do. They pay off coaches. They pay off guidance counselors. They send them on trips to make sure that they get their kids. Yes, people do that. It's not just the extremely wealthy and the famous who do it. It's ordinary people. They pay the coaches, right? They pay the guidance counselors to write letters of recommendation to get their kids into certain colleges and into certain programs, like certain sports programs. It happens all the time. So you're looking at, as the prosecutor said yesterday, for every privileged child who entered, there is a child who was smart enough and a child who is more than smart, because now we know that your child is super smart, right? Because your child got in there simply on the strength of his intellect or her intellect. So your child is smart, right? And a child whom you have who plays sports, but because you didn't have the money to go pay off the coach, didn't get into the sports program, and you and your child are sitting back in depression and watching these fools who can't even play the sport. Like in one case at the University of Southern California, they insisted that Lori Loughlin, an actress who was on Full House, I don't even watch that crazy drama. You all make these people famous. I keep telling you all, right? And her daughters, she paid $500,000 to rig a sports program to say they were on a rowing team. They were not on a rowing team ever. They even rigged photographs and Photoshop photographs. Are you serious? Is it that serious? Because I asked my daughter, why is it that the wealthy and the privileged, who already have wealth and privilege, right? Why is it that they have to push their kids to go to an elite school? And she said it's simple. It's the exclusivity. They're pushing the envelope further to say that we are so elite that we only, if we're going to college, if we're sending our kids to college, they only go to be amongst people whom they're like. So they only go to college where other elite students are. And if they're in that environment, then they're only going to go to jobs where other elite people are. Do you see my face here? I think it's time for us to re-examine why we all came to America in the first place. I thought the reason the Puritans came to America and the people on the Mayflower, who then brought over Africans and Chinese and Indians and everybody else, the reason they all came, they were running away from elitism and wealth and privilege. And then you come over here and you are mimicking exactly what your forefathers were running away from. Hey, anybody out there? Say, wave at me. Say, hey. Say, hey. Do you see where I'm coming from? So we need to stand up and we need to say something about it. Don't just let it slide. Get on your social media page and call out shame. You can't just leave me. Hey, it's not fair for you to leave me alone out here just talking about it. You got to help me out. Stand by me, right? Call out shame and make demands on the system for accountability, because they're listening to me, because I check my stats. They are listening to me. But what about you? If I'm representing your voice, then you need to add your voice to mine. So add your voice to mine, because this is shocking. This is unbelievable. And it's been happening for over 10 years. And I fear that that's not the only instance of it happening. I think it's being replicated in other programs. Just like I said, wealthy people find ways to get themselves out of paying for college tuition all the time. We're the only ones who struggle to pay college tuition. Did you know that? We're the only ones who are struggling to save money to send our kids to college that only pays one semester anyway. We're the only ones who have to co-sign loans or take out loans to send our kids to college. We're the only ones doing it the right way and telling our kids, you've got to study to stay in the program. You have to practice harder. You have to be faster. You have to be stronger. You have to wake up earlier. You have to do this. We're pushing our kids to be the best. And because somebody can sit down and write a check and then go sit down and have a margarita, that person is sending their kids to the same program. It is not fair. It is totally unfair. I watched my daughter go through college. I watched her go through college. I watched her study and stay up late at night. It didn't start when she went to college. It started from middle school. It started from the day that kid was born. I've been telling her that she has to go to college in order to make it. I've been pushing and pushing my kids forever and a day to make it. I am not comfortable with this outcome. That now, and all this time I've been telling my kids that they're smart. I always knew they were smart. What happened yesterday in that press conference just proved to the rest of us how smart your kids are. Some of us need to go apologize to our children, because when they didn't get in a program, we told them that it's because they didn't study hard or weren't smart enough. No, it's because somebody else paid off someone else to take your kid's spot. And that is an outrage. And if I ever catch anybody doing that to my daughter right now, not only will they not have a job, but you know what else they won't have? They won't have their freedom. They will go to jail for that, because I, like every other parent, has to stay up and make sure she stays up. She's not on the phone at night studying to show herself approved. And if that is the standard, then that ought to be the standard for everybody. None of us in the United States is better than the other. If you really think so, go to Great Britain, where they have a jacked up social system built on social caste that has collapsed for hundreds of years, where now there are more brown people in Britain, now more Muslims in Britain taking over because they had a jacked up social system in the first place. And now that system has turned on its head because it can't work. Because you can never have the majority and have the majority of people feeling displaced and think you sit in your ivory tower, or you sit in some place where you feel you're privileged and elite, and you're going to continue to live like that. Hell to the no. Not while we're paying taxes. If that is the case, then you ought to pay more taxes than I do. Now, frankly, if the elite and the privileged were paying more taxes than the rest of us, then I wouldn't be having this conversation, because I'd probably say, hey, you know, it is a merit-based system after all. What you put in is what you get out of it. So if you are paying more taxes, then you deserve that. But frankly, they don't pay jack in taxes. You don't believe me? Pull out your tax return. Pull out your last tax return and see how much you paid. A wealthy person does not pay 0.001% of that, because all the tax loopholes are in the system. Do you see where I'm coming from? So the way we're going to solve this thing, what y'all going to do? You're all going to go and make sure you support candidates who look like you, sound like you, and come from where you are. You don't need to support anybody who lives in way out of the zip code than you live. Don't do it, because that is the problem. You understand what I'm saying? A few years ago, my oldest daughter is now 26. right? So when she was ready to get ready for high school, we were part of a system, a religious order, a religious system. And one of the persons who attended that church was the representative of the University of Michigan. He was supposed to be the representative for the Detroit area. So he was supposed to go into the Detroit schools to recruit African Americans because the University of Michigan wanted, at that time, wanted to ensure that they had an equity-based acceptance system. So they wanted students from the Detroit area. So not just because their fees are stupendous, even for students who live within the state, right? This guy, that was his job. You know what he was busy doing? He was busy getting his wealthy friends, his children, accepted into college and telling everybody else that it can't be done. So my daughter had a particular challenge. We were not documented at the time. So the University of Michigan said that the only way she could get in is if we paid out-of-state tuition because her father didn't live here. So they were going to charge us out-of-state tuition. You believe that? The University of Michigan. You wonder why I don't support them? You wonder why you never hear me say go blue or go blue? Never, right? You'll never hear me support Michigan because that's what they did. And for those of you, so anytime I come across people who are, I went to Michigan or I teach at Michigan, I'm like, really? You don't impress me at all. Because when my daughter, who had gone to middle school and high school in the state of Michigan, when it was her turn to be accepted, you told me that she had to pay out-of-state tuition. And you had this fool driving around Detroit, pretending to be elitist, hanging out with his black wealthy friends because he's black, and getting them admitted into Michigan because he knew how to rig the system, rigging test scores and all kinds of stuff, getting them admitted into Michigan while he collected some payoff for it. Yes, he did, right? He ended up almost getting charged by the feds for getting involved in another school system down here, right? And I didn't find out about it until some years after. So about 2 or 3 years when she was almost graduating from Michigan State, I ran into him and he said, I kind of missed that. Your daughter didn't get into Michigan. You know what she graduated high school at? She graduated high school at a 3.0. In an environment where most people were getting less than that. I think hers was like 3.2 or 3.5 or something like that. She exceeded the requirements for getting into Michigan. She had like 5 AP classes, advanced placement classes. She was good to go. So when Michigan was her first choice, then Michigan State, then she was recruited by other elite schools like I think it was University of Pennsylvania. Right? And you know what happened? We settled on Michigan State because they were the ones who said, we will work with you until you achieve your documented status, and we are not going to charge you in-state tuition. We're going to charge you in-state tuition, not out-of-state tuition. That's why I say on my social media pages, go green, go white, go Spartans all day, every day. Now the conundrum I face is that my youngest daughter wants to go to Michigan. I don't know how that's going to work. Because I'm never going to support Michigan. And she's like, so you're not going to support my school? No, on principle. Because this fool they had over here in the Detroit area who was supposed to recruit students and African-American students was busy handing out the opportunity to his elite friends. He got fired by the University of Michigan. I don't know how he got fired, but he got fired. They fired him eventually. So when I found out he wasn't working there, he had changed jobs and he was working for the Education Achievement Authority. He had the nerve to say, yeah, you can come see me at my office on the 11th floor. I'm like, I'm not impressed by you. What your office on the 11th floor has to do with me? Do you own it? You work for somebody who writes you a check so they can fire you? Within a year after that, he was fired because he was involved in a scandal with a principal who had committed fraud and was taking money from the system and stole money, and he was involved in the bribery. Do you see what I'm saying? So our entire educational system is jacked. We need to stop lying to people and telling parents that the reason your kid didn't get into this high school or that high school is based on the fact that they're non-performing kids. That is a lie from the pit of hell. The reason your student did not get in It's more likely because of what? Say it. You didn't pay off anybody. All over the country, kids end up on sports programs because a father took the coach aside, or took the coach to breakfast, or took the varsity coach out to dinner, or paid for vacations. Whatever they can pay for. If they can give them a car or pay car note for a couple of months, yes, they give them that. If they can, because sometimes the exchange is not necessarily monetary because they can track that. So you don't want me to get started because I will call your names out. So don't even talk to me or come at me because I'm not the one. Because why? Because this has to stop. You cannot tell. I look at you don't know how painful this is for me. Let me tell you how painful it is for me. There's a school here in the Detroit area that I began to have some relationship with. And the students there, I think they were in the 8th grade in the fall of 2017. I developed a relationship with them. They actually invited me in. I didn't invite myself in, they invited me in. And when I went to see those students, they don't know this, but when I was done that day, I went in my car and bawled. You know why I bawled? I know those kids are not going to college. Why? Because their parents don't have the means and their parents don't have the right supportive environment. And even if the kids are smart, the teachers around them are not going to push them. The environment is not created in such a way to foster them and encourage them. That's why I bawled. I saw so much potential. And all I could look at was failure. I'm like, this is a lifetime of brokenness, a cycle of poverty that is not going to end. These girls are going to get pregnant early. They're going to start having children. These boys are going to steal to get something to eat and to make an opportunity, and they're going to be incarcerated. Is it fair? No. And I sat there and bawled because I recognized that the educational system does not serve all of us. It was designed that way, but over time, it became the bastion of the powerful, the elite, and the wealthy. I don't have anything against you all who think you're powerful and elite and wealthy. I don't have anything. I just want you to stay in your bloody lane and get your kids to be just as smart as the rest of us. That's all I want you to do. And just come off your top. And just because you can write a check, you're going to force your kids into programs that they can't even handle. So they probably were paying off the coaches and the teachers and the professors in college because they could never handle the coursework. My daughter is a law student. She's almost done, right? The textbooks are this thick. The more I listen to her conversations with other students, is the more I realize how wealth and privilege paid into it. I had to tell her, stop focusing on that and focus on you finishing. Do you see where I'm coming from? Because these folks were walking around, their kids had access. I went to a seminar once that she had down there. So because I don't look like I'm her mother, I look like her sister, right? So they probably thought she brought her sister in, her older sister or her big sister in. So I went to this thing, and the professor, the adjunct professor who was teaching the class, this is at University of Detroit Mercy. And there were some young girls in there who they were very playful with one another. So I said, don't get me wrong, but those girls are getting better grades than the rest of you all are getting because they're playing with the professor and he's enjoying their attention. Right? And she says, oh, those girls come to school every day and they do whatever. I said, yeah, but they're not smarter. They're getting better grades because he grades them at a different standard. You know what I found out years ago? That the ways in which Black students and students of color, whether your child is Black or Asian or whatever, or whatever, whether they're Southeast Asian or Middle Asian or Middle Eastern, your child's grades in school are graded at a different standard than a white child. So there is no such thing as some parts of the population are smarter than others. That is not true. That's a stereotype. What happens is, who is grading the paper? Who is grading the paper bases her standard or his standard on what the color of the student is, whose paper it is. So our education system, though created to be equal, to be an equalizer, is not equal at all. And I'm afraid this thing is going to unravel and the system is going to prove how jacked it is. You know who is going to tell the truth? The people who have been hurt by it, the people who have the facts. Because the teachers, the professors, and these institutions, they're not going to come forward and admit it. They know that these scores are rigged. There's no way they don't know. You can't tell me. This is America. This is not the Middle Ages, where people don't have access to electricity and foolishness like that. So you can't tell me that the only students who are smart are students whose parents earn over $1 million a year. You can't tell me that. That's foolishness. That is stupid. So you know the truth. You know that there are students who come from non-traditional, what you refer to. Listen to the phraseology and the labels that they attach to people. Non-traditional environments. Are you hearing me over here, you guys? Are you hearing of the disparities and the racism that is inherent in our educational system, where they're trying to introduce classism? They better grow up. They better grow up. And this is where the rubber meets the road. It's either we're going to have an equal education system or not. Now, frankly, if you can afford to send your child to a private high school, do that. If you can afford to send your child and you can afford to have tutors, do that. But for the love of God, do not send them to a school not based on the fact that it comes from the wellspring of their intellect or their naturally gifted talent, but you did it based on the fact that you paid for it, and you paid off people to rig photos, and you paid off coaches, and you paid off examiners, and you paid off teachers to make sure they get the grades. And then when they had the graduation, they have the diploma in their hand, you continue to pay off people so that they get the job, so that you continue to feel like you're elite and privileged. That's exactly why we all came over on the Mayflower and every other boat that came over. We came over to get rid of that in Europe. What's it doing here? What is it doing here? If we wanted to live in a society that observed classism, we never should have come here. We should have stayed where we were and let the Native Americans control the land. But we came here because we had a vision of an equal society where I get in based on merit. So this rampant classism, in America they call it elitism. I call it classism. It is what it is. So we have this rampant elitism that has forced its way into our educational space. And I tell you something that I've observed about children. I tell you this all the time, that you have to ride your children to get what you want out of them. Well, wealthy people have more options. So imagine if you're pushing your children, how much more do they have to push their children? Because their children, frankly, are thinking, why do I even bother? I'm going to get your wealth anyway. Do I even need to go to school? I'm going to get your wealth. Do something, mom. Do something, dad. Call the professor. Write a check. Because they're looking at it like, why do I have to be bothered with studying? I have things I want to do. One of the actress Lori Loughlin, her daughter, I posted the link on my Facebook page so you can go look at it, right? And on Twitter as well, so you can go look at it. Lori Loughlin, who had an unremarkable career. The face is, right? And her two daughters, one of them is an Instagram influencer. So to show you how this is all about the Benjamins and the money, she said something the other day that literally almost shut down her Instagram. She said she doesn't even care about school. After they spent $500,000 and is about to do jail time because it's bribery and racketeering, right? According to the law, right? This child is saying she doesn't even care about school. So they had to take that post down. So do you keep in mind that these people are trying to push their kids, and then the kids don't care. because they're looking at it like I'm influential already. I already have access because I'm wealthy. I live in a privileged class. When I look around me, I'm surrounded by other people like me. So I don't need all this that you are saying I need. So why do I have to study? I should be hanging out with my friends because so and so is going to so and so tonight and it's an important night. That's the thinking. Lord help us, Jesus. Ladies and gentlemen, we're literally sitting back and we're asleep at the switch. The switch is on. And we were asleep when it switched on, and we're still asleep today. The switch is on. We're asleep at the switch. We have allowed these things to happen because we're not vocal. We live in a day and time when media today is interactive. So once upon a time, it was writing a letter to the editor. Remember when we used to do that? Our parents and grandparents, they used to sit down and write a letter to the editor. You don't have to write a letter and put it in the mail today. You can just simply go into your Facebook page, look up the local paper, and post your comments. They read them. They collect them as data. Do you see what I'm saying? So create and make your voice heard. It is not fair for you and I to have to take out loans to pay for our children's education because our children are smart. And the barriers for them to overcome are greater than somebody who can write a check or who can give out a favor. It is not fair. That's not an equitable way to do business. That's not an equitable system at all. And it needs to stop. I told you about this fool in the Detroit area who was doing it. His wife is the city clerk of Detroit. And while she was a city clerk, he was busy giving out consideration to his wealthy friends for them to get their kids into the University of Michigan. Not one of them paid for jack. Got his wealthy friends' kids into the University of Michigan. People who can already afford to pay for college tuition. So instead of helping regular students whom the program was really designed for, they rigged these test scores and everything else to get their kids into the University of Michigan. And this man contributed to it. That's why when I see them today, I have say nothing. I have nothing to do with them. The mistake they made was they just thought I was among the crowd. Are you kidding me? You thought I wasn't going to ever say anything? You thought I was never going to call you out? You can't do nothing. Because if I go to the news with what I know, you'll be finished. Because there will be an investigation and people are not going to like the outcome. Some of those degrees need to be redacted and retracted. Because there are, for every one of those privileged kids who got in, there are at least 20 kids who were smart, not smarter, they were smart, and who were talented and gifted who did not get in. Think about it. We have become a nation of broken dreams because the systems that were designed to make us feel like it was equitable has been broken and continues to be pushed by people who are greedy, people who want more and more and more, can't get enough, can't get enough. I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that, and are not willing to pay the price. There are people right now who have made deals with coaches. Yes, there are people right now who have made deals with professors to make sure their kids get good grades. Even if the kid ain't studying, the kid is a D student at best. But you know what his grades are? B plus every day, all day. Read the story. I posted the link on my Facebook page. Let me see what you're saying over here. Good morning. I need you to go to the pages of the press, the Detroit Free Press, Fox 2, WXYZ.com. Click on Detroit. I need you to go to those pages and let your voices be heard. Now, I posted all day on my page. They read my page. What about your page? I want your voices to be heard because they're hearing me. That we're sure of. But what about your voices? Make sure they know who you are and what you're thinking, because this system is rigged. Because some of you out here have had instances, you all are. Some of you don't even want to come forward because you're thinking back 20 years ago when you could have been the varsity quarterback from your high school, and it was snatched out of your hands and given to somebody whose parents had paid something off. You just couldn't prove it at the time, but now you know that it really did happen because you didn't want to accept that an opportunity could have just been pushed out of your hands. And for the rest of your life, you blamed everybody. You blamed yourself, you blamed your parents, you blamed your circumstances, you blame God, you blame everything. When the real deal is we should have spoken up from the beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please speak up when injustice happens? Don't just stand there and internalize it. Don't just stand there and go in your homes with a hangdog face and say, I'm nobody, I'm just a little cog on the wheel. Would you please stand up? Because I kid you not, I do. When it happens, I talk. I don't quit. 2 years ago, I might have told you the story. I went for an organization in California, had allocated funds to an organization here in Michigan that I was a partner of. They gave them $300,000 to distribute amongst the four of us. The woman who headed up the local organization here in Michigan, she decided she wasn't going to give us that money at all. I heard that, so I went to the source and I asked, and he said, we gave the money to the he said, we gave the money to her. So when she wouldn't give it, I lit it up. She could not write me the check because that would prove it. But I lit it up. For the next year and a half, every time she had an event and invited me, I said, I am not interested in commiserating with you because you're a thief, a liar. You took the money and you wouldn't give it to us because we're people of color. And you had the money and you could have given it. That thing would have set me up for the next 2 years until I got the next grant. That's how the opportunities are robbed from us. I went to her retirement party yesterday. I'm going to post a picture. You think I joke with them all? I said, I called it out. The other people in the room afterwards came and said, I'm proud that you stood up to them and I like the way you talk. And I'm like, so why didn't you say something? You're sitting in the same room. Why was it only me who stood up? Right? Some of us have gone through unnecessary hell for no reason because somebody decided that they were going to make the call. This woman looked at her white privileged lifestyle and determined that she was going to make the call and who got what opportunity. She messed with the wrong girl. I was just the wrong one. I was just the wrong one. I was not going to have it. So now she's retired. And I smile. This too, it ain't just going to pass. You think I'm just going to sit there and say this too shall pass? I spoke up. And it changed everything. The organization out in California stopped partnering with them. Because I called them out. I said, you all are crazy. Everybody else became an Uncle Tom and just sat there like a muma and smiled up with them, and then they put them here and put them there. As for me, when I tell you that I trust the true and living God, you think I'm joking? What do I tell you? I said I had to. I didn't have a choice. I had no choice because people were fighting against me. I had my children to take care of. I had my business to take care of. And you're going to go then you go and open an office and have all French provincial and American provincial antiques in it. I'm like, that's where the bloody money went, man. I pick up the phone and call California. I'm like, I'm not even doing business with none of y'all. I'm not even going to represent you because this is foolishness out here. Do you see what I'm saying? No, I'm not going to say that I'm perfect because clearly I was very upset. So, I probably did not use language conducive to a Facebook Live broadcast. So let's just say that I spoke up and out. Right? So I'm not perfect. But here is the thing, they knew, and I made sure they knew, that I was not going to participate in anything you're doing while you are shelving me and think I am going to sit there like an Uncle Tom. That day and time been over. So I struggled for the next 2 years. Now, someone else I know, she's floating in money, but at what expense? What do you stand for? You feel good about yourself? No, you don't, because when I look at you, you don't really feel good about yourself. You didn't get there because you earned the merit. You got there because somebody pushed you into it. So eventually you'll collapse because you have no sure base to stand on. And a lot of times when you go into some of these organizations and encounter people who don't look like they know what they're doing, they really don't know what they're doing because they weren't trained. They don't have the capacity to absorb it. And sometimes you're even looking at them and saying, my daughter or son could do this job. You don't even have the skills for it. How you got there? It's just like in a lot of organizations, they hire people based on who they know. So the people who are gifted and talented, the people who have the skill set to do it, can't do it. And somebody over here in my Periscope audience is saying, Harriet, don't go there because you're going to rehash some stuff that I'm trying to forget or get rid of. I know, but you got to confront it and deal with it. The reason it's rehashing is because you have to confront it. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please speak up? Would you? Would you please speak up? I'm not your traditional journalist who sits and repeats what is a soundbite on the news and has to comply and conform to a network standards. I am not your traditional journalist. I am going to tell you what it is and encourage you to speak the hell up. Speak up. Oh, Michelle, you're in Louisiana, right? Speak up. Speak up. When you see injustice, stop it. I don't care if you're in Louisiana or something and the Klan is going to come outside and visit you. Before they come outside and visit you, get your arrangement and say, you're going to come and blow this up. Let me put you all out on Facebook. Your name is John Brown. You live on Route 66 at such and such, and you're a Klansman. And see what the bank will do about it. The bank that is holding their loans, that's giving them business. See what the franchise holder is doing. Some of them are franchise holders. You know that, right? So they have a national franchise. Go call it out. The national franchise is not going to put up with it. Call them out because this day and time is over. Do you understand? And it's time out for that because those are the things that hurt people. I can't keep getting past this about this thing is rising up in me about somebody who played football in high school. You were in varsity. And you played football in high school and you missed a golden opportunity. And you feel for the last so many years, you feel as if it's because you weren't good enough. No, it's because somebody paid off the coach. Somebody paid off the recruiter. And whoever paid it off, that's who got in. And you're looking at someone playing your game, your moves, in your position on a national scope and saying that should have been me. Do not you dare drown your sorrows in your cup of spoils. Don't you dare go drown it out in a cup of sorrows. Do something about it. Write a blog about it. Call it out. Call their names out. So people know that they didn't get there because they're the best. This is why I don't like institutionalized racism, because it superimposes on the rest of us that the only people who deserve opportunities or the only people who are good enough are people who are white. It just makes that assumption and that they're smarter and better. You look at it and it's not true. It is not true because that's not life. It's not reality. Gifts and talents are distributed to whomever. So there are people who can play football who are colored, and there are people who are black who can play football. There are people who can be quarterbacks. There are people who can be running backs. They're all equally distributed. And that's why I don't like institutionalized racism, because it implies that. And what it does is it destroys people's lives and robs them of their future. Just like with that fool I told you about in Detroit who was running around getting all his wealthy friends into the University of Michigan because he worked as a recruiter for the University of Michigan in ensuring that students of color from the Metro Detroit area got into the University of Michigan. Instead, he was using his position, getting all kinds of paybacks and all kinds of stuff, and giving those admissions to his wealthy friends who could afford to pay the tuition in the first place. Doesn't matter that he got fired afterwards. God is going to do something to him because he has to pay for that. You know what would be nice? Some of those kids that he didn't help, one day he's standing before one of them who's a judge, and one of them is a prosecutor who's going to lock him up. That's what should happen. Okay? Mitchell Poe, you need to be quiet. Right? That's the point is, yes, because we're sitting back, and this is us. They have conditioned us to do this. Don't say anything, no. Just be grateful for the position of you're here now. Be grateful that you can even breathe. That's like what they're telling you. Be careful. You should be grateful that you can breathe. You should be grateful that you have a job and that you can pay your car notes and you live in a house. You should be grateful. You should be so grateful. That's literally what they're saying. And you're looking at them like, excuse me? The same way you think you're entitled to it, I'm entitled to it. My ancestors pay the price, baby. So if you think you got here because your ancestors pay the price, my ancestors pay the price. What are you talking about? It ain't equal, but it is going to be. Hello. We sit back and take too much. And because we sit back and take too much, these things happen on our watch. And this is why I say that we're so inundated with information and entertainment that we're not even paying attention to what we should pay attention to. We're not even paying attention to really what matters because we're so busy. Listen to me very carefully. They know how to manipulate our thought processes. So they find us malleable, right? So you find yourself succumbing to certain thoughts. It's like that preacher guy from, I think it's the Carolinas, one of them. South Carolina, the black guy, John Gray. The one who got caught up in the scandal because he bought his wife a Lamborghini SUV or something like that. And everybody was like, really? Who bought his wife a Lamborghini? You know what happened to him? He got seduced. He knew better. He knew that it was going to cost him something. But they put him in a position where he felt he didn't have a choice. So he lived in a certain zip code. So they invited him to a meeting. And everybody who went to that meeting was because you lived in a certain zip code and they examined your net worth. So they figured you could buy a car for $200,000, and he fell for it hook, line, and sinker. He didn't stop to think about the cost. He didn't stop to think that I shouldn't do this because of my position. I'm a preacher. They're going to say this, and it doesn't look. He didn't stop to think about that. He didn't realize that they lured him in with expensive goods. And so he's almost at the point where he's lost some members of his church, which means he's going to lose his ministry eventually. You can't, even when you have crossed over, still don't fall for it. It's still maintain the merit-based approach, right? It is not going to, you just don't, so, oh, well, and many of you are like, well, it always comes back at you. You saw the scandal with R. Kelly evolving, right? You realize what's at the heart of it? Some of those parents sold their kids to R. Kelly. They don't want to admit it on national TV, but that's what it comes down to. There is a price on their kids' bodies. Those parents gave their kids up to R. Kelly. They knew his reputation. They knew what he was doing. No way, Jose, should your daughter be within 100 feet of R. Kelly. He's a child molester. You knew that. And you still sent your child there because of what? Fame, fortune that brings you privilege and this feeling that I am better than everyone else. That's what it comes down to. People who think they're better than others. You see them. Didn't I talk about this yesterday? They're walking through the community and they drive like this and they go into their place of business and I'm better than everyone else. And you and I are like, are you serious? What makes you better? You put your pants on 1 foot at a time this morning. I hope you went to the bathroom because that would mean you're not sick. You eat, we might eat different foods, but our digestive systems work the same. If you need a heart and I have a heart to give and we go into the operating room, they're not going to ask me my net worth. They're going to cut my body up and take my heart out and put it in your body. So tell me again, what makes you think you're better than someone else? Your money that can evaporate with one scandal, you can lose your business. Because that's what's getting ready to happen to these actresses. They're not going to recover. Forget about saving face. People are going to stop inviting them out because they got caught. Not because they did something and the others haven't done it. The others have done it. They just didn't get caught either. And there are plenty of wealthy people who are guilty of this. Yeah, they have all cheated. Plenty of people have cheated on getting their kids into college programs. Some of them have gotten their kids into high schools based on paying someone off. Because sometimes the kids' pattern and behavior, and sometimes you're pushing somebody who does not want to be pushed, who is not interested. But for you and your ego, you want to say, oh, my child is at USC and she's in the elite program. And so they're going to call me out as that crazy lady on Facebook with the braids. And you're all going to laugh. Because you're all going to say, oh, is she crazy? So she's right all along. It's like, what's his name? Colbert said last night on his show, he said, you know that conspiracy theory that says that the system is rigged for wealthy, famous people? You know what he said? He said, as a famous, wealthy person, it is true. It's not a conspiracy theory anymore. They've been doing it for 10 years. This one guy, he did over 800 students. And the thing about it is, this thing is compounded by the expense of it, right? Because it was committed through emails, so that's wire fraud, electronic communication, right? The money was sent electronically, that's wire fraud. If they ever use Western Union or any Cash App or any kind of interface, that's wire fraud. And was it a conspiracy? Yeah. To defraud schools, then you got caught up in conspiracy and racketeering for the profit. What was the profit? To get your kid into an elite school so that your kid can get a better job with a firm. So my daughter says, like, so it is now safe to assume that large law firms, your kid doesn't just get in there because they actually graduated with a good score. No, they got in there because the parents were willing to pay off someone to get their kids in. Because a firm like Miller Canfield, downtown Detroit, has hundreds of applicants from law schools all over the country. What is the probability that my daughter's resume is going to land on a recruiter's desk? 0. You know how she would get in? I know someone who knows someone, or I know someone, and say, what will it take? This is what it will take, get my kid in. Yeah? Yeah. 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 It is what it is. It is what it is. Sad, isn't it? So the education system in America, let them come and tell us now that it is fair. It's not. It's jacked. It's fair for the people who can write a check. It's fair for the people who are willing to rig photographs and Photoshop photographs to make it seem like a child was participating in something they never did. How do you create 4 years of history, people? Think about that. 4 years of high school history to satisfy a college requirement, and you create 4 years of high school history. Jesus, take the wheel, somebody. So, what about those students now? Now that we know, what are students all over the country feeling like? So they're on these teams and they're like, I got here because I had to get up and work hard to get here. And your parents just paid off, right? Doesn't it sound like some campaign finance thing, right? Doesn't it sound like that? It's a rich scandal. It is so rich with probabilities. I can't wait to see how it all folds out, because what should happen to the kids who earn degrees under these programs? What do you think should happen to them? Michelle, I love you, but this is not about whooping that ass. It is about calling out injustice and unfairness. And if we can't dismiss it by saying it's whooping that ass. We have to say it is what it is, because otherwise they'll never take us seriously. When you go into these environments, you have to speak their language. And their language is, this is racketeering and criminal misconduct. Then treat it like, talk about it. It's criminal misconduct. It's unfair. But don't just go in there saying it's whooping that ass. No, this is about calling it for what it is. I don't know, maybe you have never felt it or experienced it, but my kids have to study their way through school. I think that's what every kid should do. If they're going to get in anywhere, it's merit-based because of who they are and what their intellect says they can do. Right? Absolutely. So should I be proud of that? Absolutely, all day, every day. Frankly, yeah. And I was looking at this woman like, you actually wrote a check for $500,000, because maybe to her $500,000 is like $50,000. So she wrote a check for $500,000 so that she can get her child into a school, into a college program. I'm like, you might as well have paid a tutor or paid for a coach. It wouldn't have cost you 500 grand. Imagine that. And I'm like, so how much is the 4-year education at one of these places? And you could write a check for $500,000. Unbelievable. I'm just saying, people. I'm just saying. I am just saying. What do you have to say? You're all so silent. I'm listening to you. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear what you have to say, because this is something that we all should take seriously. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And especially having had the kind of interactions I have had with the educational system. My daughter has been to 3 colleges. I remember when she was at Michigan State, I've had to place a phone call or 2 to, I don't know, the dean of admissions or whatever. I've had to say something. Michelle, can you talk now? Yeah. Yeah, Michelle, talk. You're in Louisiana. What it looks like down there? How many kids are entering college down there? Parents give up a plantation or 2 to get in. Jesus, take the wheel. Okay, so Mitchell Pogue is speaking. Mitchell Pogue says, paid with privilege. Oh, Glenn Anderson says, paid with privilege. You see what I'm saying? So you and I should feel privileged. You know what is our privilege? Our kids are truly smart and truly gifted and talented. That's our privilege. You do realize that now. So now you're going to look at your child's test scores. Listen to where you're going to go with this. Because if you really sit down and think about this, it's going to blow you away, right? Because you're now going to start wondering. So that teacher who only gave my child a C when this could have been a B, were they getting paid off to deny my child? This is what you're all going to say now. It's going to make you think. And for those of you who went to college, because I dropped out. So those of you who went to college, right? Well, I dropped out of college, but I still went on TV and radio and published 3 books. So I don't know what that means to take that as you will, right? You know, I didn't go to professional school. Law and medicine, nursing, and so on are considered professional schools. I didn't go to that. So take that as you will. Let that marinate, as they would say. I know people with criminal justice degrees who are earning $12 and $15 an hour. I know one young lady who is a lawyer who is struggling to make ends meet. I'm like, that's not right. Still have to pay those student loans off. Because her parents are not wealthy and privileged to get her into the prosecutor's office. Did I just drop that bomb? Or to get her into the attorney general's office or whatever office or whatever firm it is. That's how it works. So now you're going to start wondering, boy, when I was in college, man, that professor gave me such a hard time. He probably had to discourage you because he was getting paid off by others. Let me see what my friend Michelle Pogue is saying. It's terrible. My youngest child is graduating from high school this year, and we have been traveling across the country visiting a lot of universities. The politics are unbelievable. You see what I'm talking about? That's your voice. You need to talk about that. That right there that you just posted on my page, you need to screenshot that and put it on the page of your representative and the local news team in your school, because they're going to come and ask you, which schools did you visit? And then they're going to do a story about it. Let your voices be heard. And don't be afraid of speaking up. Do you see what I mean? Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to speak up. You are so correct, Michelle. Hi, thanks for joining, right? He says he's been, and this is spring, right? So college tours are happening right now, right? This is spring. College tours are happening. I'm so out of it. My youngest goes to college next year, and she pretty much has chosen which college she's going to go to, right? So college tours are happening. It's not easy. Even in HBCUs, it's still not easy to get in because there's so much politics involved in education. It's not just about budget cuts from legislators and about budget cuts from elected representatives. No, it's also about the internal politics of organizations. It's about the dean of admissions, right? It's about the president of the college who does not feel like there are some programs that are suited to certain people. You know, I'll tell you a crazy story that happened to me when I was in high school. There was a French teacher who did not teach my entire batch of high school, my class, because she took the stand that she did not think our minds were disciplined enough to learn French. Turns out, I used to wonder was she so angry at students? Turns out she was married, but she couldn't have children. She died after I graduated high school. She died several years after, like maybe less than 10 years later. And when I learned that she got sick, I was not who I am now. I was like, oh, that explains why she couldn't have children. Did you hear what she said? Listen to her prejudice. Our minds were not disciplined enough to learn French. The principal had to correct that, and turn it around so the next group of students, it wasn't affected. But by then it was too late. She made a unilateral decision on a group of people, and you should see her. You should have seen her. She's not alive anymore. This is what happens to people across the country. People are being mistreated. Listen to this. We decided to go with St. Mary's University due to the student and professor ratio. Well, congratulations. And congratulations to her. I know she worked hard to get into school because her father did not use his privilege to pay off. Thank you, Michelle. I really appreciate that. She didn't you didn't use your privilege to go pay off the teachers and the dean of admissions and so on. Do you see what I'm saying? It's about time. You know what? Why all this stuff is coming up? When you see things like this coming up, it's because there's something in the atmosphere, right? It's time for a change. It's stirring it up. So we become aware that if you don't correct it now, 10 years later will be too late because they're going to pass legislation. And the legislation is not going to be in your favor or mine. Do you see what I'm saying? So if we don't address these issues and let them feel and let them hear your voice about how you feel about this matter, the legislation they pass is not going to benefit you and I. Okay? So we've got to, when you see things like this being stirred up, it's because not just because the prosecutors, actually, they weren't even looking for this. They were looking at other people for other things. And then they saw this and looked at it, the investigators, and said, wait a minute, this must be widespread. Sure enough, it was. And it could be that some of those same people are people who didn't get into the colleges of their choice because they were told they weren't good enough because somebody had paid off someone to get in. So we have to, this needs a level playing field. If we're going to be, the way I look at it is this a level playing field? No. If we're all going to be players on the stage, then we all should have equal access and the opportunities should be equal. Otherwise, there's no stage at all. That's how I look at it. There is no stage. If it is not going to be equal, there's no stage. I'm not one of those persons who, well, it has to be, oh, only some can get. No, baby, no. Because we set ourselves up for failure. Because there will come a generation who will say, I don't like that system, and will seek to change the system. And we all know that change sometimes comes with chaos. So why don't we fix it now? It needs to be fixed. Education, all this is doing is showing us how broken our educational system is. Our educational system needs to be fixed. We're at a turning point and at a crossroads. This is an integral time when we have to address these issues. We have to address why there is no equity in college admissions. It's not enough to walk away from this and put it down and say, boy, tomorrow is another day. No, because right now, the University of Michigan has prep schools in other places, right? But none in Detroit, right? And what has happened? What has happened is that nothing good has come out of that. Not a thing good has come out of that. Nothing good has come out of it. So what has happened is that now we are done, and we are not sure where we are, right? So we don't know what has happened to the educational system. It's crazy, isn't it? Totally crazy. Makes no sense. Makes absolutely no sense. We've become a nation that we have to fix these issues. It's not enough. Let me see what Michelle is saying. Michelle, this is a great conversation. You decided to go with St. Mary's University. It's something else. I know you're shaking your head. Literally, most of us are stunned at the enormity of this scandal because it's not over. Even when it fades away from the news, it's not going to be over, because you have to look at it and stand back and say, wait a minute, what about the people who entered college 6 years ago who have now graduated, right? Thank you for coming back. This app just keeps closing out, right? What about the people who have now graduated and who are now holding jobs? We need to re-examine that degree because you didn't earn it meritoriously. What has happened to our society where we don't earn things on merit anymore? What has happened to us? Where have we gone? Where have our morals gone? Our morals have gone so far down the tube. We don't even know ourselves anymore. We don't take pride now in our students being accepted to college because their GPA was so high or because they got in on a sports program because they excelled at the sport, because they're good at it. They're naturally talented in that area. We don't take pride in that. What has happened to that? Where we took pride in the human effort. Instead, we're taking pride in the fact that we can go write a check. Those people should be locked up. They deserve jail time. It's appalling and it's disgusting. And they have robbed so many people of color of opportunities to place their children in spaces where they don't deserve to be, where the children don't even care to be. They're not even appreciative because they're still snorting stuff up their nose. They're still going to drive crazy. They're still not going to do anything with it anyway, except to satisfy a parental whim of feeling as if you have contributed to being an elite. And it's enforcing your own privileged mindset that you are so exclusive, that these are your exclusive boundaries. That's what a lot of people are. And we created this to the extent where now other people want to be like that. People will kill. People will stomp over you in a race to the finish line. It's human nature because they now see that and they see it as an ideal and something they want to aspire to. And God bless the rest of us whose aspiration is to do it the right way. I could have been famous a long time ago. I could have been on national TV a long time ago if I were willing to pay the price for it. But I wasn't. I wasn't willing to sleep with anybody to get there. I have to do it the right way. One, I have two daughters. They have two eyes. So there are two pairs of eyes looking at me all the time, listening to me all the time, watching my actions all the time. That's who I'm most accountable to. So if I'm telling them that they have to do things the right way, I have to do it the right way. I can't tell them go to school and study to be a lawyer and study to be a doctor while I'm sleeping with some guy over here so I can be on a national stage. I didn't think that that was the way to do it. And for some people, it might have worked. I'm pretty sure people have done it. They've gotten as far as they could go. And that's as far as they could go because their gift and talent is not going to take them any further. It takes them only as far as it is created to go. So I did it the right way. And you are doing it the right way. You are actually believing that the way to do this is tell your kids to study harder, practice more, wake up earlier, get up, I'll take you. You've got to do this. You're not practicing enough. You're not studying hard enough. You should hear me. My kids think I forced them. They actually think I pushed them. So now when the scandal broke, they're like, so mom, what say you? I'm still right that you should, push yourselves to be the best that you can be. But what defense do I have when they see that other parents are paying to get their kids into the same institutions and to put them on the same level playing field? No, we need a level playing field. Level the playing field of education. If there's one place that we should all be equal, it's education. And we need to level that playing field. We need to level it because it's unfair. Thank you so much for joining me, everybody, over here on Periscope and Twitter. Thank you so much. Right? We need to level the playing field. Unbelievable, folks. It's totally unbelievable. I got to wrap this up because it's time. It's 11:30 and it's time to go. But I want to leave you with this, right? Here are some things to remember from this. This college cheating scandal has been going on for over 10 years. So it's now 2019. So this began in 2009. This was designed, these folks who did this perpetrated this in environments where they wanted their kids to go to elite schools like Stanford, Yale, Princeton, Georgetown, Texas, at Austin, I think it is, right? And they wanted their kids to be in such an environment where they feel that there are other privileged children from privileged backgrounds, similar style backgrounds, who will enable their children to access certain goods and services faster. So rather than wait for it to happen, they wanted them to access it faster, right? It is proving embarrassing to those schools because now those schools have to retract and redact their admissions policies, where their policies were clearly designed to exclude people from certain backgrounds, whether it was based on color or economics. The questions that are emerging from this are, should the students whose parents engaged in the bribery, should they be charged? Yes. There is no way that you don't know that your mother paid someone off. You know how you know? Because you hear their conversation. One, you live in the same house. And number two, you came home and told your mom that you are not going to get an A on that paper from that teacher. And she said, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. So the students know that you were not on that rowing team, that you did not even play that sport. In some cases, they didn't even play the sport that the coaches were paid off for, but they rigged the records to make it so. So the students do know, right? Yes, they do. The students know. And that is shocking. So should they be charged? Yeah, they're complicit in it. What about the students who obtained their degrees some 7, 8 years ago? Those degrees should be redacted and retracted. That's the fallout. Because we have to do what? We have to set an example. And we have to teach everybody a lesson. If you do this, you're not going to get away with it, no matter who you are. Is this unfair? Yeah. What about the students who come from backgrounds that are defined as non-traditional? You know what they call non-traditional? Where your parents aren't wealthy. Because they have the system set up and rigged. Have you ever spoken to a college president? Have you? Is it easy to speak to them? No. They act like they're the president of the United States, for crying out loud. You can't get to them. The president of the United States is far more accessible than they are. At least he answers to the people. Right? Let me see what my friend Michelle Polk is commenting on. Listen to this. Michelle Polk says, my daughter and her class experienced on a very notable university. 12 of her friends applied and 4 got accepted to the university. The other 8 were accepted but needed to join the PSA program for their freshman year. Now, these 8 SAT and SAT and ACTs were higher than the 4 who got in. And you know what ethnicity the 4 were, of course. So 12 of them applied, 4 got accepted, and the other 8 were accepted. But you know something, Michelle? That reminds me of a story I heard some time ago. That's very similar to a story I heard, where when students of color are accepted into certain colleges, what they do is, like I said, the grading system and the standards are lower for white students, but higher for other students of color, right? So it's a barrier that is imposed by the institutionalized racist system to keep people of color away from opportunities. That's what's happening here. So the 8 who got in, they had what is called deferred admission. So they have to join a special program because they're told that their grades do not match what the school's standards are. Again, I'm going to ask this question. They all went to the same public school. What makes you think that the 8 students in that had lower scores than the white students? You know why? Because the system was rigged from the very beginning that gave those white students more opportunities and more advantages than it did for the black students. So when you look at the records, it's going to say from way back when, from 3rd grade or whenever they start tracking people, or 5th grade, that these black students always scored poorly. You've ever heard that? Score poorly on math and science tests. Oh, you've never heard that? I hear that all the time. Let me tell you about that, right? And then what happens is they they have these students who then they say to them that for you to be admitted, you have to join this program for the first year and put them in what makes it sound like they're dumb, they're stupid, and they're not bright enough. When are we going to talk about this? When are we going to stop this? When are we going to question this? It's time for you to start asking. The parents of those 8 students need to rise up and go to the school and say, what kind of system is this? Did those people pay to get their kids in? And you'd be surprised how people start running and backtracking on one another. And take out your cell phone and start recording. We got to stop it. You can't wait. The politicians are not going to stop it because they have to nod to the education lobby. So they're not going to stop it. They have vested interest in it. They're going to say some things publicly, but privately, it's not going to happen. You know who's going to stop it? John Public, you and I. John and Jane Public. That very same scenario is something to be recorded. Those parents of those 8 students should record that and call the college president out on Facebook and tag the media in it. See how quickly that works. You'll get a retraction and you'll get a restating immediately. That's how you deal with that. I keep telling you all, speak up. Speak up. Say something. Feel something. Say something. See something. See something. I believe it was Martin Luther King who said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. It is unjust. I don't care what color you are. If you're going to use some other form of entry to gain access to a program other than the merit-based merits of the said program on merit-based programs, I'm not a fan. No. And especially as someone who is a person of color, look at me, right? According to the statistics, I'm a single parent, so I'm a single mother, I'm Black, I'm female, and I'm an immigrant. Oh Lord, they dump on me. They dump on me, right? So imagine that. Take that for what you will. Michelle, I thank you for sharing that with me. That is so eye-opening. And I just want to tell you right now, for those of us, if you have ever experienced this, and this is a part of your story, I'm going to apologize to you and say I'm sorry. If this was your experience that you went through school and you didn't get into the college of your choice because they told you that your test scores weren't good enough or your talent wasn't good enough, I apologize. I sincerely do. I apologize for everything that did to you, for everything that it has caused to happen to you in the years since then. I apologize. And I encourage you to start again. I encourage you to pick up the pieces, put your life back together like a collage, address it for what it is, confront it so it doesn't have the power to define you. Because if you failed and you didn't make it, you have that specter over your head. You don't go into certain environments, you don't go to high school reunions, you don't do certain things because you feel as if you have failed. No, you didn't fail. The system failed you, but you didn't fail. And if you change your mindset and wrap your mind around that, it is going to help you to find the best ways out of it. What works for you might not work for someone else. But what might work for you is you will find out as you walk the steps out. There are different ways to live. There are different ways to celebrate yourself. So walk in it. Walk in it. Find your way out of it and emerge out of it. And I'm so sorry that they took advantage of you and made you feel as a young person that you were not talented or gifted and that you didn't have a contribution to make to the society and the economy. That's not true. That's not true. Especially here in America, just because we exist is the greatest contribution to the economy and to the society. And my friends, that is what we have to do. Look at the big picture. Look at the big picture. Look what you've done in the intervening years. Let it count. Your life is valuable. It is still worthy. If you feel like that's something you should do, depending on situations or circumstances, if you just want to prove something to yourself, maybe. As for me, I am satisfied with where I am, with this is what I am supposed to do. I will only get better. And I focus on the future. As much as I learn from the mistakes of the past, I look to the future. And your future is bright. Don't give up and don't quit. My name is Harriet Kemmock. Thank you so much for being a part of my show today. Go to my website, harrietkemmock.com, and go to the exodusfoundation.com. Be a blessing to us as we continue to provide services to victims of human sex trafficking. Help us as we help others. Thank you so much for being a part of our experience today. I had a great time. Thank you, everybody. Be blessed. Hey, Facebook.